Hey everyone, yet another message coming at you while we're still in the energy of this Aquarian full moon. I'm feeling the need to come on here at 3:45 p.m. on August 20th. The full moon was at approximately 4:30 p.m. And by my calculations, I always say that the full moon is in play for about 24 hours before and after. Supermoons, I would actually extrapolate those to 48 hours before and 24 hours after. And as you know, Aquarius is the sign of tribe. So a couple of messages that kind of want to come through that maybe got lost in the longer message that I gave you guys yesterday, which was Jupiter, Saturn Square. I don't remember the name of the episode, but you'll see it in Spotify, Apple, and as well on the new YouTube channel, Cosmic Alarm Clock. And that is going to be where I find myself more and more after Pluto goes into Aquarius. In what form, I don't know. I'm just trusting my intuition to launch a podcast, to launch a YouTube channel when I'm only planning to do haphazard collective astrology reports. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And maybe this whole thing makes no sense, but that's Jupiter and Gemini. If you happen to watch my Jupiter in Gemini 8 things that business owners need to know about Jupiter and Gemini, which is on my main channel, and I'll link that below. I said yes in the other episode I would link a bunch of videos, and I didn't link them, but I'll link that below. I talked about one of the potential negatives about Jupiter and Gemini, which is expansion of Gemini, which is sales, messaging, marketing, and that can become overwhelming. And all of a sudden, somebody in my building wants to do construction, and my mind says, maybe that means I shouldn't be recording and dropping this right now, but we're going to keep going because I don't even know if you can hear that. So, something that wants to come up, to be isolated, to kind of just share in terms of collective messaging, in terms of what I'm feeling right now, is that, with Libra in the South Node right now, Libra being comparison, Libra being an air sign, Libra being collaboration, and Libra being about balance, and Libra being a lot of what a lot of women have been conditioned into, which is to worry about other people think. And Gemini is the other side of that coin, because Gemini is the mutable air sign. And in between, we have the fixed air sign of Aquarius. So you think about it like a mountain. You've got Libra, which is the cardinal air sign, which is kind of like being on the fence in the South Node placement, being on the fence, worrying about what other people are thinking. You've got Aquarius on the peak, which is what we're heading into, this whole Aquarian age. This is me sharing this message simultaneously, basically, on YouTube and Spotify and Apple. You can't see me, I can't see you, but we're sharing a moment if you're listening to this message. And I'm sharing what's coming through me, which I guess would be Uranus, because I'm not the one who controls this podcast. And then on the other side of the mountain, the triangle, we've got Gemini, which is the mutable air sign, where Jupiter is right now. And Gemini is mutable, but mutability can also be very much fence sitting in a different way. It can be over-analysis. It can be using the mind in negative ways. If you know the tarot, the swords is the mind suit of the tarot. And it is kind of like anxiety. And I'm sure a lot of people are feeling a lot of anxiety right now because of just world events, change, things going on. It'll also depend on where a lot of this activity is happening for you personally, how personal for you this is in your chart. But one thing I wanted to mention, and I had put this on the community tab of my existing channel, and that will be the last non-evergreen, astrologically focused thing I put on that channel. I want that channel to be a library that builds for the future. I'm building a foundation, Taurus, while Uranus is in Taurus, of the community I want. And so I want everything on that channel to be evergreen, but I still want a place for people to discover a cosmic alarm clock and hear these messages who may not otherwise hear it. I can tell you personally that any podcast I've ever listened to has been word of mouth, has been someone I met personally. I found them on Threads. I guested on their podcast, or something to that effect. If you're not famous, no one's going to find your podcast. A lot of people like to tell you like, oh, they'll find it through SEO, this and that. Maybe if you got people searching for astrology podcasts or searching for sports podcasts or real crime or true crime, if you're one of those like strict genres, maybe, but I don't know. I never search for podcasts. Maybe I'm not your typical podcast person. At any rate, I am sure that since Jupiter moved into Gemini Memorial Day weekend, you are seeing the results of this monkey brain, monkey mind, constantly learning things, constantly listening to podcasts or self-help stuff or this or that, and listening to other people's opinions and getting feedback from people. And it can be overwhelming, or it can be really positive if you're very selective about who you choose to share yourself with. So I just thought I would share that. I'm feeling that way, and I thought other people might be feeling that way. So I wanted to come on here and reassure you that it's not you. And I wanted to remind you that even though we are at the first quarter square, which is otherwise known as the crisis point because it is the first quarter moon and the light is starting to build, we have 3 more of these. There was so much to talk about in the Jupiter Gemini podcast show, whatever I dropped video. It's not a video because I'm not on video, but whatever you want to call it, that I dropped yesterday on Cosmic Alarm Clock. That it was just even too much to talk about the future. And Jupiter and Saturn are going to square 3 times. They squared at 17 degrees on the full moon in Aquarius, which again, this conjunction happened at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And then Mars and Venus conjunct at 0 degrees of Aquarius in the spring of 2022. I did a video on that. And so 0 degrees of Aquarius is a critical point, but you got to remember that right now Pluto is at 0 degrees of Aquarius in retrograde motion. And then it goes into Aquarius at Thanksgiving. And then Jupiter and Saturn square again on Christmas Eve, almost 4 years to the day. Almost 4 years to the day of that conjunction. Now, that feels relevant to me because, in my opinion, a new moon is about 4 days. If you look at an official new moon, it is 3 1/3 day. Every moon phase is 3 1/3 day. We have 8 of them, and that comprises our moon cycle. And a conjunction is an instantaneous event. So the actual new moon or full moon is an actual instantaneous event that lasts a maximum of about 30 minutes because it's when those two are conjunct in the sky. But my opinion, when I work with new moon intentions, which I mentioned a book in the last episode, I think I channel these, so I don't remember what I talk about, but I remember I mentioned Jan Spiller, New Moon Astrology, classic book. If you're going to read astrology books, read the old ones. The new ones are shit and they're written by AI and they're written by people who've only been studying astrology for a couple of years. Get the old stuff, get the classics. So that book, when I see my new moon intentions really start to manifest, it's about 4 days. And if you look up at the sky, if you really want to be like, oh yeah, I see a moon in the sky, even if it's a little crescent, to me, it's about 4 days. All of that is to say is that they'll conjunct each other, or they'll square each other again on Christmas Eve of this year, which is exactly 4 years to the day, basically, where we had the conjunction. The conjunction happened on winter solstice of 2020, known as the Christmas star in the sky. So on Christmas Eve of this year, they're going to square each other again. And they're going to square each other again. Let me look this up. Should have had this, but I don't. At 17. No, that doesn't make any sense. Are they going to square each other at 17 degrees? I'll have to double check on that. But they're squaring each other at 17 degrees this time. And then they'll square each other. No, Saturn will be direct. So I don't actually know where they're going to square each other. But it's going to be in the same sign. It's going to be in Gemini and Pisces. And I don't do whole signs, so I'm not doing this whole game of, well, this is the house it's in. That's horse manure. You've heard of me tell you why. Because if you're like me, these things are going to be happening in different houses. And so I look at the relationship between the houses to show me what I need to know. But it's very, very likely that where this is happening in December is going to be in the same house that this happened for you now. And then they square each other again at 1 degrees of Aries and Cancer, respectively. Now, I'll have a lot to share before that, but that happens very close to summer equinox of next year, it happens close enough to summer equinox that we're in the energy of it. And that sounds kind of crazy, but it's kind of interesting because where I live, which has 4 solid seasons, today was the first hint of fall. And it's kind of interesting because it's only August 20th today, and Virgo season starts in 2 days. And as you know, Virgo is the sign of fall, and nature tends to really listen to the astrological chart more so than the weather report. But we had a weird year this year. We had crazy heat of astronomical levels in July. I think we had the hottest day on record. And somehow August has been freezing where I live. And it's been very weird. And that's just the world we live in. Things are weird. And so I saw a lot of people on threads talking about how fall is coming. And I find it very interesting that I'm talking to you guys about the mouth of summer. So that seems crazy, but I think you guys know that cosmic time is picking up. The world is speeding up. Life is speeding up. And we're going to be in June of 2025 in a minute, especially with Jupiter and Gemini, Gemini being an air sign. And then we switch hands and Uranus moves into Gemini, and then all bets are off. So Uranus moves into Gemini just days after this happens. So this third and final square, which happens at 0 degrees of Cancer and 0 degrees of Aries, is very, very important because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And Saturn will be at 1 degrees of Aries. Now, it will go back. But if Saturn represents the boundaries of space-time reality, and Saturn represents the structures of society, we're rebuilding. And so that is a very, very powerful time to have that third and final conjunction. And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So when Jupiter moves into 1 degrees of Cancer, game on. I'm really excited for that because my Jupiter, I believe, is at 1 or 2 degrees of Cancer. So that's my Jupiter return. You only get that once every 13 years. It's incredibly lucky. So I'm excited for that. But for all of us, that is the real conclusion of this. So anytime in astrology, when you have something happen 3 times, it's presentation of the issue, then it goes backwards, and then it goes forwards again. And every planet will be direct at that time, will be coming out of spring. It's a powerful time. When this second square happens, so right now Jupiter is direct and Saturn is retrograde. Well, in December when this happens, and Pluto is at 0 degrees of Aquarius in retrograde motion. Well, in December, Pluto will be in 0 degrees of Aquarius in forward motion. So remember, this is the 0 degree point of Aquarius, is where all this shit went down 4 years ago. And Pluto will be in Aquarius for 20 years. And this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is a 20-year cycle. So this is a long-term things we're talking about collectively and personally. And so in December, Jupiter will be retrograde and Saturn will be direct. Well, when they conjunct for the third and final time, they will be in cardinal signs. They will both be direct, and Pluto will be well on its way. It'll be past the 0 degree point. So it's done the work. And the other thing is that Mars will go retrograde at the beginning of December. It'll start to slow down by middle of November. Right around the time that Pluto goes into Aquarius, Mars hits its slowdown. It hits its degree of station on December 2nd, and it retrogrades at 6 degrees of Leo on December 6th. I have a Venus at 5 degrees of Leo, so that's really, really powerful for me. So this is personal for me as well. And I have it marked because I already know I want to have my entire podcast, The Aligned Alchemist, which is my other podcast. I want that all recorded, or it's a seasonal podcast. I'm either going to break for the season or I'm going to have all recorded because I know my life force is going to go in the toilet. I am Mars ruled. I'm Scorpio rising. So, but for all of us, Mars is our life force. And so there's a slowdown happening. And so the big deal will be, and by the way, Mars will be in Cancer from September 6th through late April. That is how long Mars is in retrograde or retrograde shadow. It does dip into Leo, but it is in Cancer technically it's fall. I don't believe that because I have Mars in Cancer. Like I said, all this stuff is very personal for me. But it is a different way of acting. It's definitely a slower way of acting. It's a more intuitive way of taking action. It's a more body-based way of taking action. That is what we are moving towards with Jupiter being in Taurus last year, Uranus being in Taurus, and now Mars being in Cancer. Remember that Cancer and Taurus are related. Cancer being the moon's home sign and Taurus being the sign of exaltation, Cancer being the moon's cycles and Taurus being the earth cycles. So they're both related. And so that is a big reason why I'm leaning more into the work that I'm doing with leaning into your body wisdom, leaning into your intuition, making business decisions in line with your intuition and your higher knowing, and also tapping into your actual body, your soma, and your nervous system regulation, and how that affects your subconscious mind and all of that. And that's a lot of what the Aligned Alchemist is about. So if you're a business owner or just interested in those topics, check that out. That will be on my main channel as well. It's already live as a podcast, but I'm waiting a minute to put it up on YouTube. And so the third and the final pass is coming. And so I just wanted to share that with you so you can kind of mark those dates on your calendar and kind of be thinking about the patterns, set intentions for where you want to be June 15th, June 20th, somewhere in there, of when this finally finishes its conclusion, and where are you now, and what are the things you're working on now. I know I talk about collective astrology, but I'm just going to talk about what I'm feeling collectively and energetically, and I'm going to share it, and whoever it finds value in will listen, and if not, whatever, because news is always newsing. Events are always eventing. With the election this year and all the crazy shit that's happening, and Jupiter being in Gemini through May, I have no doubt there's going to be no shortage of twists and turns and unexpected events, especially with Uranus stationing retrograde September 1st and Pluto moving back into Capricorn the same day. There's plenty of room for shenanigans. And also, I don't want us to get distracted from what this is at the base level, which is us. Aquarius is ultimately ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is the author of your life, being the author of your life and taking inner authority for your life. And Saturn is the boundaries of space-time reality. Uranus being the co-ruler of Aquarius, this really is taking your life to a quantum leap, expanding beyond what you think is possible. And that's law of attraction, and that's using vibration, and that's human design, and that's business energetics. And that is being able to tap into the quantum, being able to tap into the innate body wisdom of your ability to talk to your guides, talk to your ancestors, really vision what you want and make it happen and bring that into your reality. And so kind of bypassing the existing boundaries that we know, because Gemini being in the mindset, we limit ourselves. And that's why Gemini is also about communicating with others, getting other people's perspectives, because you can do that in a positive way where you bounce ideas off of other people and you get like-minded feedback. You're with like-minded people and you get positive feedback, or you can take in too much and you get overwhelmed. And if you have an undefined head in human design, you will be someone who struggles with this. I have undefined head, and this is why I am very hot cold with social media, because I can't really go on there. And so it's going to be when I hire someone to post for me that I'll really be present on social media, because I just don't even want to bring it into my consciousness. With Jupiter and Gemini, it's really about recognizing that the world is trying to distract you, and it's trying to take you away from what your purpose is and what your goals are. And you can use all of these tools to allow it to do that, or you can use all these tools to further your mission. That's all I wanted to share. And again, I don't remember the degree it's happening in December, but we'll be talking to you before then. And I don't know, I'm thinking about doing a live stream when Pluto goes into Aquarius, probably some typing thing on YouTube. Let me know if you are down for that, if you think that would be a good idea. And we can do some Q&A, and I can point out where certain things are happening for people in their charts, and maybe even pull a few people for readings if you guys are down. So let me know if that's something you want to do in the comments on YouTube. That's the best way. And if you want this to stick around on YouTube, then like and share and comment, because that will let me know that people are actually watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep it on the podcast players. Enjoy the rest of this full moon energy. This doesn't even feel like a full moon. This feels like a portal, and I don't use those words often because they're overused, but it feels like a very special and weird time, especially because at this end of this month, Pluto goes back into Capricorn. It's almost like Pluto turns back into a pumpkin after giving us a preview, and Uranus goes retrograde until the end of January. Uranus does not go direct, I think, until February 1st. So this is the last juice of really, I don't know, some type of magical energy that I can't even extrapolate into words, but I'm sure you can sense. That's why I wanted to come on here and give you this little extra. Talk to you soon.